can use the you can use the chat box or the Q&A to submit questions. As you probably just heard, we are recording it, so other people can see it if they weren't able to attend. As needed, we'll unmute participants towards the end, and we are ready to get started.
Awesome. So we today are going to introduce our panelists here. We'll go over our plan for the meeting tonight, which will be giving you information on camp and encampment, specifically to deal with COVID-19, not necessarily programmatic pieces of it. We'll save those pieces for a different conversation. We will have some poll questions for you to jumpstart some conversation and discussion, and then time for some open questions, comments, feedback as well. So to get us started here, Leslie, do you want to start with some introductions?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We wanted to talk to you guys tonight about camp and encampment, and we're super glad you did join us. We were devastated last year not to be able to have camp, and we want to talk about this year and how people are feeling. And like Kelly said, many of you know her as Polar Bear, that we are not talking about programmatic things tonight. We will definitely, if we're moving forward about camp, we will definitely talk about that later. This is not a like, hey, we're telling you what we're doing with camp meeting. This is a, we want to hear from you camp meeting. Even though camp seems a little bit far away, it seems like tomorrow to us, because we have to start, we really are booking rooms, booking places, booking people, buying supplies, all this stuff that happens. There's a lot that happens between now and May and June and so on. So we are definitely in the mode to make a decision as soon as we can. Last year, obviously, we didn't make it till later because we didn't know about COVID in February. So we acted as if everything was happening. Fortunately for us, some of the stuff we bought and got ready for last year, we can use this year. So, you know, we didn't really have anything go to waste as far as that went. But, and we were able to get our venue money back and different things. So that was good. But we do need to make decisions this year sooner than we made them last year for obvious reasons. A couple of people on the phone, you know, Kelly, she's our camp director, AKA Polar Bear. We have Maggie Ewan, who helps with a ton of program and really is our main organizer for encampment. And she wrangles all of us to do everything we need to do for encampment. We have Ann Curlin on the line. I'm sure many of you know Ann as well. Ann's been involved with Girl Scouts for many, many years. She was the service unit leader down in Juneau and a troop leader and a mom and all the stuff of Girl Scouts. And she's the co-chair of the Membership Connection Committee. And we, the committee's been around for a while, but we're getting it re-energized. And so we wanted to bring them in on talking about camp with all of us. And then Kari Levitt's on the line. Kari is on our board. Kari is a Gold Award Girl Scout and grew up in the Susitna Council and I think was a Toga Woods counselor. And so she's the co-chair of the Membership Connections Committee. We call it the MCC. And then Amanda Block is here. She's often not on camera. She's got her son there. So sometimes she's off camera, but she's listening for sure. And, you know, Amanda from past camp directors and also our chief mission officer at the Girl Scouts. So before we kick it off, I'm really, Kelly and Maggie are really going to run the meeting, but I do want to say that our number one priority is our girls' safety and our family safety and our staff safety. We pulled the plug last year because we didn't feel like we could present a program safely. And I think we've learned a lot since last year. All of us have nationwide, worldwide about COVID, and things are changing as we speak on you know, threat levels and vaccines and all the stuff that's happening. And then things will change even between now and June that I don't even think we can totally guess exactly what will happen between now and then. But we're going to try to make some best guesses and make some plans, not pull the plugs or say go ahead like at the very last minute. We really need to make some decisions this month. So I'm not going to speak much longer. Like they said, you have a chance to ask questions in the chat. We have a question. There's also a question and answer feature. And there's even, depending on how long this goes and how much we talk, it's very possible that we could just have you speak too. So I will turn it over to you, Kelly. Is that right? Okay.
So before I jump in with information, I want to just give Ann and Kari a minute here to introduce what the MCC is, because that's a term that might not be as familiar to many people, and they're an important part here. So go ahead, Ann and Kari.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kelly. This is Kari, and yeah, again, a co-chair of the MCC. And the MCC basically is a committee, and our major focus is getting feedback from the council members. So that means girls, parents, troop leaders, service leaders, and ensuring that feedback gets to the council and vice versa. So we're kind of like a connection corridor, if you could think of that. So this seems like a perfect place for us to be. And we're really excited that the council staff extended an invitation for us to join and listen in. And yeah, and I'm going to hand it over to my co-chair, Ann.
Hey everybody, I'm Ann. I'm a troop leader down in Juneau, as Leslie said. And as she said, we're really re-energizing the MCC right now. And part of that means that we would really welcome your participation. We'd like to have multiple perspectives on our committee. And so if any of you are parents or troop leaders or have any other kind of volunteer role within Girl Scouts of Alaska, and you would be curious to know more about what the MCC is and does, I'll type my email address in the chat box here, or you can always also email customercare@girlscoutsalaska.org, and I know they'll find one of us and forward your information on to us. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. So I'm going to jump right in here then and start by sharing some decision-making steps and information that we do have. We know that there's a lot of unknowns right now in terms of COVID, and the answer to many questions might be, I don't know yet, but we're working on it. But we want to share what we do have and what steps and places we're looking for information in order to make some decisions. So we want you to know that we're looking at guidance from the American Camp Association. Some of our camps are accredited by the American Camp Association, and they put out guidance for camps on COVID-19 and running camp, as well as their general safety standards that they put out. We also look to GSUSA, who is monitoring the COVID situation. And as you know, for Girl Scouts, they've put out general guidance on troop meetings and things like that. They are also working with councils on guidance for camps as well. We also look to state and local guidance, as well as CDC guidelines, as well as hearing input from our board, our membership, our MCC Membership Connections Committee, parents, volunteers. And as we look through all of that information, like Leslie said, camper and staff safety is our #1 priority when making all of those decisions. Leslie also mentioned that decisions need to be made sooner rather than later. So for encampment, the vendors, the fairgrounds, places like that do need to have some decisions from us in the not too distant future here. There's also a significant amount of time that's spent on camp and encampment during the off season to prepare and hire staff, and in this year create those COVID guidelines for camp. And so in order to develop really great programming, we need to figure out which direction we're running with what that programming is going to look like. Maggie, do you want to take a minute here to share some of the feedback that we've gotten from the surveys that we've sent out regarding camp and encampment? I know there's not a lot of conclusive data there, but we have been sending out surveys to our membership. Hopefully many of you have gotten those surveys, and we just wanted to take a second here to share what some of that feedback has been.
Sure. Yeah, we have sent 2 surveys out so far. You may have received them. We sent one in October and one at the end of January. In January, we got 268 responses, which is really great for a survey. Most people are from Anchorage, and then second, most people is from Southeast. For encampment, About 33% of people said that they are not planning to attend encampment or not sure if they will attend encampment because of COVID. About 40% said that they are planning to attend encampment. We also asked how comfortable people are attending at different risk levels. And the responses were pretty similar for both camp and encampment. About 40% of people are comfortable attending at any risk level. 46% of people are comfortable attending at the low alert level. About 80% of people would like to attend encampment with safety protocols in place. That would be things like mandatory masks, social distancing, hand washing, cohorting, all of that kind of thing is on the table. 21% of people would like to postpone until 2022 with the hopes that we could do it in a more normal fashion. So for summer camp, about the same, about 30% of people said that they were not planning to attend any summer camp program because of COVID. About 55% of people said, yes, they are planning to attend summer camp. And like I've said, very similar comfort levels for summer camp. 43% are comfortable attending at any comfort level. About 50% of people are comfortable at the low alert level for day camp. Resident camp, about 36% of people are comfortable attending at any risk level, and 40% are comfortable at attending at a low alert level. So you can see it's pretty divided, pretty evenly split on our membership on how comfortable people are right now. That has changed a little bit since October, but not much. So we're taking all of that kind of information into our decision-making process. Not only, of course, we want to make sure everybody's safe, but we also want to make sure we're running programs that people want to attend. So it's helpful to know that, you know, at least close to half of people are interested in attending programming this summer.
Awesome. Thanks, Maggie. And we do have some poll questions and time to hear your individual feedback on those sorts of things today. But I have a couple other points before we get to those. One is that if camp or encampment does run, we'll put together detailed COVID plans and policies that will include those things that Maggie talked about, like wearing masks, considering vaccinations for both staff and campers, depending on what's available, testing possibilities, increased cleaning and sanitizing, as well as health screenings. All of those things are on the table. No decisions have been made specifically on what those guidelines will look like for us, but do know that we are considering all of those ways to help mitigate the risk at camp. And again, giving every girl interested in a camp experience an opportunity to attend camp of some sort is a priority for us. So we do want you all to know that if we don't run camp, a specific camp or camp in a specific area, we will offer some sort of virtual camp opportunity. That doesn't necessarily mean Zoom online live virtual camp. That's an option that's on the table. And that's one of the questions we have for you later today is what kinds of virtual non-in-person camp things would you like to see if camp doesn't run in person. So know that we are committed to giving girls experiences that are safe and helpful to them. Another piece that we've gotten many questions about is cookie credits. And last year, as we canceled the in-person camps, we let you all know that those cookie credits would transfer over to this year, and that this year's cookie credits would transfer to next year at a rate of 50% of those. You can read the whole piece there, but do know that those cookie credit guidelines or policies were made with the idea that camp is running this summer. So if things change, we don't run camps in specific areas, different things, we will revisit those cookie credit policies in order to make sure that girls are getting the rewards that they deserve, and know that it doesn't just all go out the window because camp doesn't run this summer. Those policies would be revisited and we would take a look at what we can make possible for girls. Maggie, Amanda, Leslie, anything else before we launch some polls and start getting feedback from our attendees? Yeah, Leslie.
Just a quick thing, I wanted to shout out, I see we have some other MCC members on the line too. We have Dion White and Tina Seaton. So thank you for joining us, ladies, and that's all. Thanks.
Awesome. Maggie, any other pieces from you before we launch some polls? Okay, great. Well, we're going to start with some polls. Oh,
I am going to drop the link to the cookie credit policy in the chat so everybody can see that.
perfect. So I'm going to start launching some polls here, and we'll use this as kind of a jump start to some discussion. Feel free to type thoughts in the chat or Q&A, but let me see if I can get this launched. I think I have it set up so there's 3 different polls with a few different questions in each. So we're going to see what we can do here. All right. It should be launched. I don't think it's launched for panelists, but it should be launched for attendees. So we'll give you a chance to take a look and find the answers that best fit for you.
Kelly, do you want to explain what rolling decisions would mean?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the first question says, how would you feel about rolling decisions for different camps and camp locations? So this question is basically asking if we know that one camp location or type is not going to be possible this year, whether that's we're not going to be able to run Camp Togawoods or we're not going to be able to run a travel camp location. Do you want to know those as we have those decisions made, or is it better to give that decision all together, make the decision for all the camps at the same time? And the same sort of applies to the next question as well. Would you rather us make a decision based on date, on June camps, earlier than July camps, that sort of thing? The submit button is not working. I'm getting answers, Krista, so I'm not sure what happened on your end. But what I can do is put those 3 questions in the chat. And if you'd like to give us some answers there. Submit button not working more
It
than.
might be that you need to scroll down all the way to the bottom and answer all the questions.
Yeah, there are 3 questions. Dion can't find the survey. The poll question survey should have just popped up for you. But what I can do is I can read those questions out, and then if there's feedback that you want to give in the chat or through the Q&A, you can do that. So the first question was, how would you feel about rolling decisions for different camps and camp locations? And the answers are whether either I want the decisions made all at the same time, or I prefer rolling decisions for each camp type. The second question was, how would you feel about making decisions about camps based on dates? So do you prefer that decisions are made about the entire summer all at one time, or that we make decisions month by month, or that you don't have a preference? And then the third one is, what type of communication would you like to see as decisions about camp are made and shared? So we want to make sure that you get the communication that's going to work best for you. So email notifications, text notifications, Facebook posts, COVID and camp website, another town hall meeting are all options. And you can select more than one in that piece. And then we had a question about encampment. The first weekend in June is the dates that encampment was planned for. And if we move ahead with those dates, that's when it would be, but delaying is on the table still. All right, it looks like we have most of our viewers have voted. I'm going to see if I can end polling and share the results. at the same time.
I think you are.
You guys can see those? Awesome. So it looks like the majority either don't have a preference or prefer that decisions are made for each camp individually. And it looks like the majority either don't have a preference or prefer that decisions are made for each month of camp independently. And it looks like email is by far the preferred method of communication, followed by Facebook posts. So we would more than likely do multiple of these things. But if there are different ways that are not on here that is a better way of communication for you or you know of for other people, please feel free to let us know that as well. All right. Let's see. So this next set of polls is all about risk mitigation options and comfort level with camp. So I'm going to launch this poll. The first question is about resident camp and the length of a session for resident camp. This doesn't mean that we're going to run 21-day sessions, but one way that camps across the country are mitigating COVID risk is through running longer sessions. So we wanted to just put that piece out there. The next question is about comfort level and risk level. Maggie, are you able to, during this, share your screen and show those risk levels? At this point, many of us have seen these risk levels lots of times, but we also wanted to put those up and share them with you. And then the last one is about testing. And if we required kids to be tested prior to attending camp, would your camper still attend? And again, this doesn't mean that we are for sure doing any of these things, just that these are all things that are on the table for consideration. I'm still getting a few answers in, and then we'll share.
You know, I don't know that it's going to be on our poll, but I think a question, this is one of those things that we might know later than we don't know today, is school just started for most places this week, I think, and maybe a little bit of last week. So I think it's possible that parents, and you guys can speak up if you agree or disagree, might feel kind of based on how school goes, how they feel about camp as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, we're going to end this poll and I will share the results. So it looks like 6-day sessions is, and 6 days is what we normally run at Togowoods with a few 10-day sessions. So those are normal options for kids. It looks like there is interest in a little bit longer of a session in some families that are not considering resident camp, and that I didn't specify why. That could be because of the location or distance from resident camp or COVID concerns. All of that falls into that answer. It looks like as far as alert level, it's pretty split across, with intermediate being the biggest choice there. And it looks like if we required kids to be tested prior to attending camp, that would, for most people, not be a barrier to attending camp. All right, I have one more poll for you, and then we're going to open it to a little bit more unstructured feedback. So this last one is about virtual camp models, keeping in mind that virtual camp doesn't necessarily mean live on Zoom in front of a computer screen. It just means not in person, as well as a question about encampment and your preference about if we can't do in-person encampment this year, whether you would like it to be a virtual non-in-person option or postponed. So you should see that popping up here shortly. And definitely for that first question about virtual camp options, if you have ideas or thoughts, this is the one piece that in some ways this applies programmatically. Feel free to share your ideas on structure for a non-in-person camp option.
There is a comment from Michelle about a blended model, some live, some recorded, maybe a supply box.
Awesome. Yeah. That's a great suggestion. All right, give it just a few more seconds to finish up. We have most of the responses. All right, if I missed you and you didn't get to respond, feel free to put your answers into the chat as well, but we're going to end polling and share some results here. So it looks like for virtual camp, live sessions with camp staff and camp kits and boxes with activity supplies, or maybe some combination of those, is the preference. And for encampment, it looks like pretty strong preference towards postponing it rather than trying to move that to a virtual platform.
Kimberly couldn't select the options you wanted for the first question. Kimberly, if you want to stick it in the chat, we can just read it there too.
Bummer, I'm sorry that I missed that. That should have been a question that you could select more than one answer. So absolutely throw in the chat if you had multiple answers, but.
She said all three.
Awesome. Yeah, I think a combo option is the selection from multiple people. Yeah, we have about 19 attendees. So there's 19 people providing feedback today. And we will continue to, we'll share this. This is being recorded, so we can share this, and we will continue to gather more information from other people as well. But we have about 19 people. There might have been 17 or 18 responding to the polls.
We also, when we sent out the email just inviting people to this, we also got email input too. So it's not just tonight. We've been getting other ways that people are writing to us.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing this and close out the polls. And then Maggie, would you like to jump in with any encampment pieces that you wanted to share and or facilitate some Q&A or open conversation?
Sure. The first thing that I just wanted to mention is the camp staff. We all just got done attending the ACA conference, and we got some really fantastic ideas about how to safely run camp, how to successfully run virtual camp. So we're really excited to be able to put those ideas into practice. As far as encampment goes, like Leslie said, we do have to make decisions here quickly. We have to sign contracts, we have to pay vendors, all of that kind of thing. So decisions will be coming sooner rather than later. And our number one goal is safety, of course. So if we can successfully and safely run encampment, we certainly will. For both encampment and resident camp, the big piece that is the challenge is the overnight portion. So figuring out how to do that safely. The CDC is recommending 4 to 6 feet between beds right now. So figuring out how we could do that successfully, that's the big piece that we have to figure out for both of those programs. And like I said, we really want to be able to do it. And so if we can do it safely, we certainly will for both camp and encampment. Let's see, we've got a couple of comments here. That camp leaders really make camp for the girls, like the idea of camp kit mixed with live virtual time. Dion says, from an expense aspect, postponing would be best if encampment took place. I would worry that it might be disappointing if the event is poorly attended. That's definitely something we have to consider. The finances are never our top priority. Both camp and encampment are not moneymakers for us, but that is something we have to consider.
Mm-hmm. And the quality of program that we can present with the safety guidelines in place or with it being able to be safe is a consideration. We want to be able to give quality programming for girls, and that's really important to us.
And the other thing about the difference between encampment and camp, of course, is that encampment you sleep in tents. And so I think the ACA, what's their word on tents and sharing tents, Maggie?
It's mixed. Depends. For longer programs like resident camp, it is much safer because you can cohort. For encampment, because it's a short program, that makes it a higher risk. Encampment is one of our higher risk programs in a non-COVID year, just because of sheer size of event. We could have an outbreak of anything at encampment. We have typically close to 1,000 people in attendance. That is a consideration we have to take into account. With it being so large, it makes it a higher risk program for COVID.
There was another comment about, I can't see how any spacing would be possible in little tents. You're right. So at some point for when you're looking at resident camp and encampment, when you're looking at sleeping in tents, resident camp, I guess the tents are a little bit bigger. There is some possibility of distance and separation in them. But yes, in small tents, you're accepting the risk of being next to those people, and you're looking at keeping bubbles small rather than completely distanced. So that is a risk to look at and take.
And there are layers of what are called NPIs, non-pharmaceutical interventions. Those are things like masks and washing your hands that we can put into place to make those types of things safer. And we certainly would if we were able to run those programs.
Mm-hmm. There's a comment from Nicole. I think Girl Scouts' ability to transport girls to and from day camp will be a big factor in whether families can send their kids to day camp if it is held out of Anchorage as usual. You're absolutely right. The majority of our girls who come to Camp Singing Hills or Juneau camps as well, I believe, are bused to camp. And so looking at where we hold camp, whether that's at Camp Singing Hills or other locations, whether we look for an outdoor location in Anchorage, all of those are considerations. But access to camp, we understand that access to Singing Hills without bus transportation is a factor for families.
I think that's one of those things that as families see what it's like to ride a bus to school. I assume a lot of kids are riding buses to school right now. I'm sure some are getting rides. But that might be where comfort levels change as you see examples of it working or not working with the schools in the next month.
We did ask about bus service in this past survey, the survey we did in January. About 40% of people are comfortable riding the bus, which is really helpful for us to know.
It looks like Cindy's sound cut out. We have not made a decision about a bus to Singing Hills this summer. That is still on the table to look at and see if we can do that with distancing and safety if we are able to run camp. It's also on the table to look at alternative locations for camp to make it more accessible. So the bus decision has not been made, but definitely we will be looking at school data and what busing to schools look like.
Stephanie, to answer your question about encampment, so 1,000 people, we typically have 1,000 people in attendance. That's usually about 700 Girl Scouts, 200 adults, and about 100 vendors, volunteers, staff, that kind of thing. So it's 1,000 people total, not 1,000 Girl Scouts.
Which, I mean, just right now, you know, encampment is just really kind of around the corner. The idea of having 1,000-person event seems a little, you know, they just canceled the Iditarod, they just canceled for Rendezvous mostly. I'm a little more thinking that encampment's going to be harder for some of these reasons. And the idea of having 1,000 people, although we probably wouldn't have 1,000 people, even 500 or 250, seems harder and less able. But this is not me saying we're not doing encampment. It is not me saying that. I'm just saying that it's a harder thing to jump over. And so I am interested to hear other people's thoughts about that too, about the ability to have an event for 250 to 1,000 people. Actually, Maggie, I should know this. Do we have to get permitted by anybody to be allowed to do that? No, okay.
It looks like Annie has her hand up, so I'm going to see if I can allow you to talk, Annie. I don't think it will give you video, but I think it will allow you to talk.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for this meeting. What I just wanted to share about encampment is I'm all for the mask, but and all the other things that can be put into place, but I'm not sure how we are going to care for hand washing, the public restrooms, the porta potties with that many girls. I mean, at certain times, those places are packed. And, you know, we take a motorhome, so I don't even go use those facilities, but, you know, the girls are. And so that's a big concern I have. Like you said, it's 1,000 people, and yes, we're spread out, we're outside, but how do we care for the hand washing? And here's another point. How do we care for the mask? My little granddaughters are both going to school now, and they have to take 4 clean masks a day. And they come home and we wash all 4 of them. We stick them back in so they can take them to school the next day. And I just think, you know, and I keep thinking to myself, with teenagers, telling them to put a clean mask on will be trying to get them dressed in the morning. They get there, they wear the same clothing for the entire time. So this is the type of thing. I don't want encampment to lose its specialness. It's such an incredible experience for the girls, but I'm so concerned. I mean, we're planning to go if the threat level is low, but we would be totally okay with it being postponed so that, you know, we'd have the opportunity to go again when it's not going to be hindered, or maybe the numbers will be lighter. I don't know. So I just wanted to throw that out there when I think it kind of overwhelms me as a troop leader and as a mom that I can, you know, I'm happy when I can get my girls to wash their hands before dinner, and not just use the hand sanitizer, you know? So I think that might add some angst or anxiety to the troop leaders that are bringing their girls. The tent thing, I mean, if worst case scenario, we pop tents up 1 girl per tent, but you'd have to have that type of equipment available, which we don't. So, you know, but that's something that could be looked at, but I think there's ways to do this, but those are my big concerns, and I just thought it would be easier to speak than try to type that. That's all. You can mute me again, please.
I will do that for you. Thank you so much for sharing those. And absolutely, if other people have comments and pieces like that they would like to share, feel free to raise your hand. We are here to hear feedback about comfort level and ideas around COVID. Looks like we have a few more things in the chat.
Christiana is saying she can't see most of the questions we're getting, just our responses. So we might want to say the question too.
Okay.
Thank you, Christiana.
Yeah, most of the questions are coming to panelists. So we had a comment from Nicole. I think a virtual option is not what girls want. They have been learning online for so long, and the link with other girls is what is missed. For my girls, the thought of another Zoom or another packet of stuff to do by themselves would not be of interest. That's great feedback, and we want to know that from you and your girls. Rural Alaska and running a virtual event is very problematic. I deal with rural students' lack of access. Absolutely. When it comes to online and bandwidth and those sorts of pieces, live connections with rural Alaska, it is very problematic. You're correct. And so that is part of the reason we're looking at some of those other options as alternatives to in-person if we can't do those in person. Obviously, we've done in-person camp for years and years and years and years, and that's what we want to be doing with girls. We know the value of that for connections and those sorts of things. If we can't, we're going to look at what is the next best option. We have another comment. If the Alaska Zoo and Trailside can figure out how to do day camp, then we should be able to do day camp at Singing Hills. Looking at what other camps are doing and what their protocols are and how they're doing it safely is definitely something that we're considering. We are definitely hoping to be able to figure that out. I think that day camp, especially in Anchorage, is probably on the easier end of things to figure out. And so more likely than maybe some of the other camp programs. But yeah, do know that we have an ACA, American Camp Association Alaska group, and the camp directors from all those camps work together and talk together and share all of those things. So there's nothing that they're doing that's being hidden from us in terms of COVID protocols or safety measures or risk mitigation. So we definitely work together with them. Let's see. We have another comment. I feel like tent sleeping can be made to happen fairly easily. They have to sleep toe to toe already, so that should keep heads 4 to 6 feet away already and 4 to a tent at resident camp. Yes, limiting tents to 4 instead of 6 at resident camp is definitely something that we are looking at. There is still risk in that, and figuring out what risk level is acceptable is what we're looking at, as well as the rest of the camp program and staffing. But yes, I think that the tents at Togowitz, sleeping in those tents is easier to figure out than tents at Encampment in terms of space. So definitely a good comment. Thank you. The next comment is camp registrations are already occurring for other camps. The longer Girl Scout waits to make decisions, the more likely girls will already be committed to other camps. Oh, in terms of month by month, yes. That is definitely something to consider. And we want to be able to make decisions sooner rather than later, not just because we have to, because of all of the pieces we need to do, but we also recognize that families want to plan and girls want to plan and have something to look forward to and know what that is. That is definitely something to keep in mind. The next comment, I'm hoping they'll be more accustomed to frequent hand washing after school has been in swing for a while. Yes, I think that some areas have been in school for a while. Some areas are just starting. It's different depending on what district you're in. But yeah, when kids start doing things on a routine basis, it becomes habit and becomes routine. And hopefully schools do a great job teaching that and helping kids be comfortable wearing masks and washing hands and all of those pieces. So I do hope that by summer, some of these things that we're implementing or putting on the table to think about are not as big of a deal as we might think them to be. Another comment, I agree to the diminishing interest in our girls' virtual learning. I feel encampment is an experience that is best kept for in person. That is valuable feedback and we definitely appreciate that.
Kelly, we've got a question in the Q&A too. Katie says, troop meeting guidelines specify no overnights at red or orange levels. As a large troop, I'm not certain we'd be able to meet outdoors even at the yellow level. Will those meeting guidelines be loosened? My troop would love to go camping on its own this summer, which would be safer COVID-wise than 1,000-person gathering. Yes, definitely. Will that be allowed?
So GSUSA has put out guidelines for troop meetings, and that's a lot of where our troop meeting guidelines have been based. I do know that they're in continual conversation, and I think that across the country, as schools open up and figure out how to work, GSUSA is going to look at that and going to take those pieces into consideration, along with changing CDC guidelines and all of those things. So I would expect that things continue to change, things keep changing. So I would not give up on the idea of that. Right now, the way our troop guidelines are set in most areas, it looks like that's not a possibility. I would not put it out of the realm of it changing to be a possibility. So just maybe don't get your heart set on things or your kids' heart set on things, but do keep those possibilities open. I think that there may be changing guidelines out there, and we as a council keep in touch with GSUSA in order to make sure that you all get those guidelines changes and have the most up-to-date information for your troop activities. So as they change and as we get closer to summer, we'll help troop leaders look at those guidelines and see what's possible for outdoor activities with girls. Looks like we have another question in the Q&A. Have you thought about what your cancellation policy will be for refunds if people decide that they don't feel comfortable attending camp? Oops, it went away. If they don't feel comfortable attending camp anymore, or if someone gets military orders. Overall, we have some pretty flexible camp cancellation policies. So I think that we don't have them set in writing yet for this year. That is something that we will do and will put out. I think as far as military orders, if girls move out of state or move away from where the camp is, I'm pretty sure that's something that we have always been pretty flexible on in helping families be able to cancel and then be able to have that to go to camp in the place that they're at then. So that piece I think is pretty flexible. If they don't feel comfortable attending camp anymore, I think that there's going to be case-by-case basis this summer in terms of COVID cancellations, but we will put together some complete cancellation policies. There will also be some flexibility in those and that sort of thing. Leslie, feel free to jump in if there's other pieces that you want to share.
You know, Maggie said it earlier. Our goal at camp is always to have camp and have fun. It's not a money, it's not to get money or make money. It's not a money maker for us. So we want to be flexible with families, especially we get it this year. It's even harder than ever to make plans. So our goal is to be really flexible.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Says, how is the science and engineering program being accomplished? Rules for that can be accomplished for Raven Hall and other buildings. Or are we envisioning the entire program outside? I have 5 ambassadors with the expectations that they work at these camps. It will be helpful to pre-planning. I'm not 100% sure which science and engineering program is being referenced here.
Maybe you could ask the question live, Krista. Let me turn on your mic and have you ask it.
Oh, it's an encampment question.
Okay.
Maggie, do you have
Oh.
more information?
Yeah, Krista, are you asking about STEMapalooza that's coming up? You can type in the chat or just raise your hand. So STEMapalooza is virtual. So we aren't doing any live programming, in-person programming right now. As far as encampment goes, being outside, that is definitely an option for us. It is much safer for us to be outside rather than be in the buildings. We have to weigh the safety of being outside with the space for everyone to be outside and the weather and all of that kind of thing. And as far as ambassadors go, their role at encampment will kind of depend on what encampment looks like. If we're cohorting, we're not going to have ambassadors volunteering, passing through groups. It just wouldn't be safe. So the older girl programming, we really do want to work on for this coming encampment. We know that seniors and ambassadors sometimes want to do programming, sometimes want to volunteer. We really want to make a program for them that is something that they want to do. So that's all things that we are considering right now.
Yeah.
Rebecca has her hand raised too.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get you live here.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry, I was driving for most of it. I just parked. Thank you guys very much for having this. And I did want to second or third, the kids are really getting exhausted with the Zooms and really, really craving the in-person connection. And I know like encampment seems like a crazy idea to even talk about with how many people would be there. But if the kids were, there's plenty of room to be able to have the kids have their own tents or sleep in family pods, you know, and the bathrooms, you'd have to do like a monitor that's there with something like Oxivir, that's a 1-minute dry time sanitizer between every use of a restroom or something like that. I mean, to be honest about how to keep the spread, you have to do the bathroom between each use. It's not just the matter of like every night you clean it or whatever. And then like with the big Raven Hall, that's the other part where when they're doing their swaps and when they're doing your guys' program and things like that. And if you could do like smaller sessions where you do it by the age group. So like all of those brownies turning juniors all go at one group meeting, and then you bring in the junior level, and then you bring in the cadet level, and then you bring in the senior and ambassador level. So you're splitting it and not having everybody all at one time is another possibility. I'm just trying to help push what my girls would want. I'm kind of a little freaked out on both, so I feel both ways.
I think you're not alone in feeling multiple different things. I think that is a common feeling right now. And just brainstorming different options and thinking about the possibilities is what we're here for in terms of COVID. So we appreciate you sharing. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's 2 minutes till 8 or 2 minutes. We were cutting at an hour, right, Kelly?
That was the plan, yes.
I don't want to cut people off for talking for sure, but we know that people have, speaking of being zoomed out, I'm sure half of you are on a Zoom half the day today at work or with your kids. So definitely get it if you can't stay past 8. You have a question here about STEMapalooza, Kelly.
That's a great question. We have, when I checked earlier today, almost 300 girls registered for STEMapalooza, which is very exciting. A handful of those are, maybe 25 of them or so, I'm not 100% sure, are from out of state, different places. We have opened it up to girls from different places. So it's a great turnout for a virtual program. It's not the same as how many we normally reach if we look at those big in-person kind of events. So
I think too, as far as the question Nicole said was, how's that help gauge for summer? I think the other problem, not other problem, the other issue is summer in Alaska and STEMapalooza is in February. So I think that also makes a difference on the willingness to be on a Zoom too.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it is 0 outside right now.
Yeah. We also want you to know that if you leave this meeting and you think of something or there was something that you wanted to share but forgot, please feel free to send those comments to us or questions to us. The customer care email, Maggie, would you mind just typing that in the chat one more time?
I could do it for you.
Okay, perfect. The customer care email is the fastest way to get a hold of us and share that input. So we would love to hear if you have more thoughts after this meeting.
Any last chance questions, thoughts? Thank you for coming, everybody. Like Kelly said, please keep any thoughts, or if you think of something after you talk to somebody, please encourage them to get in touch with us if they have thoughts. Like I said, we got quite a few comments back just from our email out. So that was great. And we'll keep listening and put out some information sooner than later. Not June, I promise. Not even May, before that.
So, and we will use all of those communication methods that were mentioned in the poll. It seems like people need a variety of ways of getting information, and we are happy to do that for you all. All right. Well, thank you
everybody.
so much. Have a wonderful night, and I hope everybody stays safe.
You too. Thank you.
We can get together in person as soon as possible.
Yay. All right.
I'm going to end it for all.